Tuesday, Atlanta United family. I hope you are all doing well. I am Kelly Francis. Thank you for joining the run-up today as we get prepared to face what is, honestly, a must-win match against Inter Miami for the gajillionth time. But before we get started, I know that my partner tonight, John Nelson, has got something he's been very fired up about. So let's lead right into that, John.
Yeah.
What just came out that is really frustrating you?
And I'm probably not the only one. 40 minutes ago from the MLS Disciplinary Committee. Headline, MLS Disciplinary Committee decisions. Paragraph. The MLS Disciplinary Committee has found Atlanta United and New York Red Bulls in violation of the mass confrontation policy during the 75th minute of their match on October 10. Both clubs have been issued a warning for their first violation. Parenthesis, video link, closed parenthesis. Paragraph 2. Due to their roles in the mass confrontation, Atlanta United midfielder Jeff Larentowicz and New York Red Bulls midfielder Mark Shutkowski each have been issued an undisclosed fine for instigating and escalating a mass confrontation in their match on October 10, period. Paragraph 3. In addition, the MLS Disciplinary Committee has found Atlanta United defender Franco Escobar in violation of the league's policy regarding hands to the face, head, or neck of an opponent. Escobar has been issued an undisclosed fine for his actions in the 75th minute of Atlanta's match against the New York Red Bulls on October 10, parenthesis, video link, closed parenthesis, end of statement.
And how does that make you feel?
How do I look? I'm
Obviously,
the epitome of calm right now and rationalness.
okay.
Reason?
I think reason would be the epitome of reason and rationality. But in all honesty, it makes absolutely no sense. The amount of times the disciplinary committee has issued fines for things or had issues with things and then completely foregone and completely missed other things is baffling, to say the least, not to mention asinine. So if we're going to really get into it, then we should get into it, because it feels
like... Please have a naughty option somewhere in the chain.
Yeah, we're going to need the naughty option for this version. We're going to need the naughty option for the run-up tonight. Because I'm checking my watch.
Yeah.
I'm checking my watch here.
Uh-huh.
And thank God I don't hold my breath. All right. I'm still waiting for the disciplinary committee to have some kind of decision on Figal trying to rearrange John Gallagher's face.
Yeah, still waiting on that.
In Miami. Let me check my watch again.
Does something say Yamil Assad, DC United, red card? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's another one. That's another one that I'm looking for here. Yamil Assad on Brooks Lennon, still waiting on that one. So maybe I need to kind of start my watch up again to try to restart the clock on that one. So, all right. Let me. I'm not going to try to explain it, but
okay.
There's an element that's missing here. There's a player that's missing. Tom Barlow from New York Red Bulls. And it's for those of you that have ESPN Plus, if you click on the Spanish version, you can see it. The English version has been blacked out. You can go to the Spanish version and watch it in the 75th minute. After Mark Shutkowski kicks Jeff Larentowicz twice, as Jeff, for the second time in 2 minutes, is trying to restart quickly, and Shutkowski is there trying to prevent it from happening. The second time that Shutkowski does it, kicks at Jeff twice. Jeff is trying to move the ball away from Mark Shutkowski and restart things quickly. That doesn't happen. Tom Barlow gets in between Jeff and Shutkowski.
Yes.
Yet Tom Barlow gets nothing in any of the 3 paragraphs that we just read. Barlow bows up to Jeff Larentowicz. Mark Shutkowski is behind Tom Barlow. Yet we see no mention of Tom Barlow's name in any of those 3 paragraphs. But then you go to the back of the whole incident, and meaning that I mean the rear, as we're watching from the television cameras, and you'll sit there and see Franco Escobar in his contact with Mark Shutkowski. Tom Barlow omitted from the entire thing. Mark Shutkowski kicks at Jeff Larentowicz. And I'm gonna click on the game report. If I can actually get things to behave here. So I want to click on the game report, and I want to check and see who got cards. I want to check and see who got cards here in this particular instance. And so I'm going to click on the game report, Atlanta, New York Red Bulls. I've clicked on the game report. I'm going to go to the box score, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the box score where they have this kind of information. All right, player statistics. All right, disciplinary. In the disciplinary column, second half, I'm just going to skip Sean Davis's yellow.
Yeah.
Jake Mulroney in the 67th gets one for unsporting behavior. Then there's a gap between the 66th minute and 90 plus 3 and 90 plus 4. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing in 75 with a little comma there. Right. Tim Parker gets a yellow. Emerson Hyndman gets a yellow. Time wasting and unsporting behavior. 75th minute. There's no yellow there at the time. Then when you have the opportunity to give another yellow or anything with Shatkovsky, the disciplinary committee again, there's an omission there. There's like this paragraph that's missing, or there's a sentence or two that's missing. I'm shaking right now because I'm trying to process all of this, and it's probably my downfall that I'm trying to do it like this. But again, and I guess I should restart my watch. I'll restart my watch here.
Please don't hurt yourself. You're going to injure your wrist just like I've injured mine.
Yeah. So, yeah, now my head hurts, and we're 7 minutes into the show. So 3 paragraphs from the disciplinary committee. Congratulations.
Does anyone know what's going on here?
No, Bruce, we don't.
No, we don't. It's not shocking at the same point as infuriating as it is at the same time. You have a committee that chooses to pick out fine details of something that's not really important, and then completely, as we were talking off air, completely disregard really important disciplinary acts that should be happening with the safety of players.
Uh-huh.
And then there's an additional issue with what I feel like has been progressing over the last 2 years that Franco Escobar has been playing for Atlanta United was this focus on, not 2 years, 3 years that Franco's been playing, is this issue where they like to single him out. It's like the bad guy in a movie that's not really a good guy, but people keep seeing him as a bad guy, and it feels like there's no in-between for that.
So like Johnny Lawrence from The Karate Kid? So you're saying that Franco Escobar is Johnny Lawrence?
He's the bad guy that's really a good guy, and is trying to do good, but people keep seeing him as bad.
Okay.
And obviously we're Atlanta United fans, we love him, but there is, I think, a viewpoint with refs, with the disciplinary committee, with other teams in MLS as Franco is just this nasty player, and I don't think he is. I think he plays the game well, and I think he times most of what he does defensively very well. And then we'll get into also this conversation about him as a CB, because he's now changed the way that we need to look at our defensive line. But the disciplinary committee can SUCK it. It's a moot point at this point in time. We're not going to get anything we want to get out of him this year. It feels like Pro and the disciplinary committee have a chip on their shoulder against Atlanta for some freaking reason. I have no idea. So now that we're talking about Pro, and the Pro has been brought into the subject, obviously there was a big talking point and a big conversation this week, which was the goal that the Red Bulls scored, right? Yeah. This whole judgment of, was the offside? Was Guzan's view impeded? What happened with that? And on my end, because I know you guys have spilled your guts on Soccer Down Here in the last 2 mornings on this, and you guys obviously had a wonderful first hour going into hour 30 on this call. You interviewed Kevin Egan, you interviewed Jessica Charman, and that's one of the ones I actually want to point up is Jessica Charman, right? So I respect her incredibly for her takes on soccer in general. She's extremely knowledgeable, but I think one of the things that she brought to the table with this discussion in particular was her viewpoints as a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I thought it was really crucial when she said she kept rewatching the tapes, and you keep looking at the way that Guzan goes about trying to block this shot. As we've seen him do over the years with all the other goalkeepers in MLS, when you are preparing to dive for a shot, you're setting your feet in steps, right? So there's like this sort of a stutter step, and then you dive to make sure that you have enough length to cover what's being shot at you. But as we can see with Guz, when you keep rewatching this, there is no stutter step. He has planted feet because he's trying to worry about the player in front of him. And that's an impeding of Guzan's decision. And I think what was also said by Jess and by you guys in general, and it seems to be like a consistent thing that I've seen with pro referees this year, the first year that VAR was implemented, it was overused. It was incredibly overused, and to a point where we asked, please stop using VAR, this is ridiculous. Last year, it was sort of a melting pot of being overused and not being used at all, that type of thing. But it feels like this year, for 2020, for some freaking reason, the refs have gone back to this idea that they don't need to see it. Even though they have the tools to make sure that a game decision like this, as important as this is looked at, and you have that facility to go back and rewatch if need be, use VAR. Use that ability to go back and see, because one of the things that Jess pointed out, and I'm sure was pointed out, how are you in real time going to decide what is impeded and is not impeded? How are you going to, as just a human individual, not multiple cameras on a screen that can slow down, how are you in real time going to make that split decision on what Guz was able to do and not able to do? And that's sort of where I come out with it. As a league, as the referee union needs to move on with this, pro has got to get to a point where they accept that they are human and that they will sometimes need VAR for assistance. That doesn't mean that you need them all the time, but in points like this where it's hard to see what is impeded, you should go to VAR because it's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's there to help you make the right decision. And it feels like it's consistently this season been that refs have just said, no, we don't need it. And there's been disregards for that. I mean, we've seen this obviously with the Pagal. We've seen this with the Emil Assad. This lack of making sure they're doing the right thing on the field. And I feel like that's a kind of a big deal as a ref. You want to make sure that you make the right call. Why are you not doing what you can to make the right call? You're just tossing to the side this really advanced piece of technology that's there to help you when you need it. It doesn't make sense.
Well, and at the same time, taking each individual decision, not necessarily the ones that are associated with Atlanta United, but once again, we don't know what the conversations are. We don't know on case-by-case basis what the conversation is from VAR down to the center ref, what those conversations are. If the center ref sits there and says, no, I got it, and the center ref feels confident enough not to use the monitor, if you have these kinds of conversations across the board. But yeah, to your point about using the monitor, it is there for a reason. Even if you want to just be doubly sure from the conversation that is going on your microphone and in your ear from VAR as center ref, just go and take a look. And I know that's what it's there for. And I know that confidence is also there in center refs. But to your point, I do think that if the monitor is there, go ahead and take a peek. Just even for the look, even if you're still confident in your own call, regardless of what the conversation is in your ear. I think that sometimes a lot of these discussions wouldn't happen if the center ref would just go over for the appearance of looking at just to double check what you thought you saw in your head, just to sit there and make sure and processes everything through that one final time to reinforce the opinion that you had previously.
Yeah. Sorry, by the way, if that's at all being picked up. Braves are obviously playing right now, and I just heard a lot of screaming from down for me, so I'm assuming the Braves have done something awesome. So if you are watching both us and the Braves at the same time, we thank you for joining us regardless. Yes. And we're going to continue on. So let's actually talk about the match in a whole. Obviously, we talked about the news that just broke from the disciplinary committee and the goal, which is something we should be allowed to talk about. I know that Jason and you guys have harped on this. It should be a discussion that is had. We are allowed to discuss things that we find to be inadequately handled when it comes to pro, when it comes to a team that we love, when it comes to just officiating in general. It should be something that we're allowed to talk about because we all love soccer. We all want to discuss it. Why can't we not discuss these things? Sort of silly to tell somebody to stop talking about it. So Atlanta United versus Red Bulls. Obviously, the first half was our half. It was a tale of two halves, as we have sometimes seen with Atlanta United this season. Played really well. Gallagher, 3 shots on goal, 1 on target, has to be more crucial and converting those chances in the final third. Incredibly good player, has the ability to run in and make these great runs on the ball, but there still has to be a finishing quality, which he has not yet reached to that level. And you got to see that, though, because Gallagher, in all generalities, is not really a striker. So we're playing with a different formation than what would normally be seen if, obviously, we're all healthy and well. And then, of course, in the 48th minute, Clark gets that goal with the interference and impediment from Royer. Overall, it was sort of just a game where Atlanta United had control in the first half. The goal was scored in the beginning of the second half. That changed the game completely. The Red Bulls are a team that don't like to have the ball, so they're going to let Atlanta try and convert something. We got really close in the 76th minute with an effort from Hyman from distance, but overall it never connected. And I think that's something that Atlanta United is getting better at when we're talking about getting closer and closer to converting those chances, but it still feels like there's a gap between some of the creativity that's happening and the ability for it to hit the back of the net.
Right, and to answer your question, Kelly, it's 2-0 Braves in the top of the fourth. That's what happened. It went from scoreless to 2-0 Atlanta. So that's what the screaming was all about.
Yes, love it.
But I think that you look at schedule compression and the ability to get the relationships, and I know it's a point that we talk about a lot. When you don't have that midweek match, and you're able to spend that substantive time in practice trying to get everyone familiar with one another and try to sit there and see what relationships are humming and which ones are working and so on and so forth. Once again, you have that base to build from, but then once again, you're going midweek weekend, and it's just you get the fits and starts of all of these relationships. It's like dating someone that you like to be with, and you want to spend time with them, but for some strange reason, work will get in the way and it won't be the same. And then you have to sit there and pick things up and something else will get in the way. It's like, I got, guys' night out or something. I'll see you in a couple of days. It's like, okay, then what about this date? And then everything just kind of, it's just trying to get acquainted with one another, and then something will get in the way. And in this case, with this relationship, it's schedule compression and getting the practice time and things like that. And so it's this relationship that you're trying to build with the other guys that are out there. Yeah. And
what guys' nights do you normally do where you say, "Hey, I want to go to a guys' night. I'll see you in a couple days"? Like how much of
that's more of a weekend thing than it would have been a week middle of the week thing. But
we need to talk about it. We need to have that conversation.
Well, yeah, I haven't had that in about 11 years, but no, to your point. But no, when I was single, when I was single, I didn't do it either. I was more of a homebody and just watched a lot of television. I know that surprises folks, but no, it's the relationships and trying to build them. And that's the thing, is that when you get the time to be with each other in full practice sessions, and you can strategize and come up with ideas and things like that. But once again, fits and starts, and it just kind of, you sit there and you get those hiccups, and this is what you have with schedule compression.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, this is the result of having games back to back, of having 2 games, almost what feels like 3 games in a week. You've got guys with tired legs. So then when we talk about, obviously, the players that have stood out, let's talk about this game and for what we've seen the past 3 games, we're talking about Franco Escobar, right? Obviously, incredibly talented guy. We played him for right back for most of the time because he has that ability to play different positions. And we're seeing now why he was a natural center back to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. Pretty good on the ball. Just, again, was their man of match. Just smooth, calm. Everything that we want to see from Franco Escobar, but in a more disciplined, for Franco, more disciplined role. It's incredibly nice to see. And as a fan of Franco, and especially as a fan of playoff Franco, it's a player that's sort of endeared himself to Atlanta United. So it's wonderful to see him not only show versatility in positions, but also show versatility as far as him growing in responsibility on leadership. That's something that I think this year has been incredibly pivotal for Franco Escobar, is that leadership mentality that he's been able to grow. Another guy that we need to talk about, which is going to need to be talked about, is Jeff Larentowicz.
Yep.
He's up in age, obviously. He's obviously closer to me than maybe you, but
yeah.
And still at this point in time, he's a veteran at the game at the moment, and he's playing full games. I mean, he's playing the full 90. How long will we be able to see Jeff run full steam on these compressions? I mean, I feel like there's going to be a point in time where we know we need him in the midfield, but he's going to have to get some rest. And where does that come from?
Right, that's the big question. Dan Graham, UC Dan Graham, came in on Twitter and wanted to know, can Jeff survive another 90 minutes? And, last time out, he went in and it was 84 minutes, replaced by Manuel Castro, as Glassy was trying to get some more offense on the board and send everybody forward for that last push. But, I mean, Jeff has racked up a lot of minutes. And I know that, and you mentioned Franco and you mentioned Jeff, and I think that what you're getting are those calming influences on two separate lines. And Franco, when he came to town, he's like, I'm a center back. I can play right back. I can play outside back, but, I'm a center back. And so you're seeing Franco, and I think that it's more controlled. I don't know if that's the right word. He's really locked into what he's doing. And while you do see those moments of emotion that we're used to seeing from Franco, the outside back, Franco, the center back, is locked in. And I mean, he'll go in there, and there are some tackles that he's made when he's been at center back that are just things of beauty. And I mean, it's just great to stop a push offensively, those kinds of things that you're seeing from Franco. You're seeing them from George Bello too. And I've seen more slide tackles probably in the last 6 weeks than I've had in the 6 months previous. And for me, I love seeing those kinds of things. But I think that you're seeing a Franco that is really focused on the task at hand as a center back. And so you're seeing that, and it's something that I'm enjoying watching with him there. And I think that what it does, obviously it frees up things. You can have Brooks Lennon as right back, or, and have Dom at right wing. But I think that what it does is it also presents the depth that you have that you're going to need for this push, because you're talking about any combination of Walks, Miles, Franco, Brooks Lennon, George Bello, Fernando Meza, if he plays himself back into the lineup and into starting position. So having 6 guys for 4 spots obviously will help you down the line, especially in this last push. But you mentioned just the controlling nature, the calmness that's there, the focus that's there, the locked-in ability that we're seeing with Franco. And Jeff, as your 6, the calming influence, that veteran presence, the guy who's going to sit there and either push forward when he's asked to, or sit there and lay back and be that extra set of legs and that extra body back there too. 2 guys that we're seeing really in control of where they've been on the pitch the last handful of matches.
Which is something you want to see, obviously, for an Atlanta United team that's struggling currently at the moment, is to see 2 players like that really step up in responsibility and calmness and carry the team forward. I know that the result we got, obviously, was not the result we wanted. We desperately needed a point, if not 3 points from that match. But I think what we're seeing, at least from what's going on right now with Atlanta United, is certain players like this that are endearing themselves to the team, are standing up for what Atlanta United is, which is strength and its courage and fighting back against all opponents and in some ways themselves. Because as a team, you gotta continue on this fight to get a point, even if you're a point behind. And that's something Atlanta United has said that they're doing better to start fighting and to, one, not allow themselves to be a point behind, but if they get to that point, they've got to continue to fight because that's what it's about. But you do bring up a good point, which is these players in a capacity of depth, right? When we talk about players that we have on the substitution list, we have players that were originally starting the beginning of this year with people like Meza. These players that have the ability to come on and make differences for the rest of the team. And even though this team is sort of stretched thin, I still see it as working really well because it feels like most of the players that we have that are on the pitch currently and have that ability to transition in and out if need be, as far as rest, time compression, that type of thing. We have a lot of Swiss Army knives.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing to have as a team, especially a team right now that is not like, and this is actually one of the things that I wanted to bring up because it's something that Jason pointed out, and in comparison to the New York Red Bulls and Atlanta United. Atlanta United is about flair, and it's about a style of play that is going to be pressing but also controlled. Like, they're going to be, and they're not going to be one thing. And the Red Bulls primarily are one thing. And when Jason was talking about what players that they get into the system for the Red Bulls are players that are going to fit the system, and not that you see the players that you have and you build the system around that, which is sort of what Atlanta United does, in the fact that they, of course, want entertaining, fast style of play, but you're going to go out and get players that are fun to watch, that are talented players on the dribble, that are good 1v1. When it comes to defenders, you want, obviously, pragmatic defenders. You want people who aren't afraid to stand up to a striker coming in, those types of things. But it's really interesting to see that the way this team is built is that in some ways a lot of what we're relying on as a club are those subs at this moment. And it's, I think, a props to our depth that we have that ability to pull guys like Mulraney, pull guys like John Gallagher, pull guys like Wolf when he comes on. These types of people like Castro, these guys that come on that aren't our regular starters but have that ability to start in a game, and it really doesn't feel like there's a lack of drop-off.
No, and you get a guy like Lawrence Wyke who came on and gave you 20 minutes last time out. Lawrence Wyke, Stephen Glass, familiar with him from Atlanta United too. Someone else who's not afraid to stand up to anybody at any given moment. You see a Mo Adams who's come in and done really well his last handful of games. So, you could sit there and you could go down the roster and sit there and say, okay, well, here's what we've seen from this guy. You could see him here and here. This guy, we've seen him here and here. This third guy, we've seen him here and here. And so having all of these different parts that you can sit there and work and figure out, it's like, okay, like Mateus Usechu, when he first showed up, and Stephen Glass was a part of trying to figure out what to do with Usechu in any given match. They had him doing three different things, I want to say, in one match, and Stephen Glass was the first person to sit there and say he did all three of them very, very well. So having all of this versatility is big, and especially when you're making this last push, that what we've been talking about. But yeah, and I think that you've gotten a lot of good effort from a lot of guys who've been asked to do a lot of different things.
I would agree. Absolutely agree. Now let's start moving into what we could possibly see going ahead to Inter Miami. Weather right now, no rain. My finger might obviously before it starts tomorrow night.
Humidity.
Currently right now it's just saying the temperature tomorrow around kickoff will be around 84 degrees.
Right.
It's also saying humidity is only going to be 69, so we will see if that's factual as well. Somebody at the Weather Channel's line at the moment. But obviously Atlanta and Inter Miami played multiple times this year.
11 billion times already.
More times than I ever wanted to play Inter Miami in one season.
Yeah.
And I believe the record that we have with them is 2 losses and 1 draw, correct?
It is, yes. The 2-2-1s on September 19th and September 9th, and then the goalless drawback on September 2nd.
Right. So obviously this game, hold your breath, guys. It's a crucial game for us. In some ways, not in some ways, and the very fact of the matter is this is a must-win game for us, because when we look later down the road, there are games that we should be winning, but there are also games that if we don't win this, we're going to have to steal points later down the line from something, and you just don't want to be in that sort of a push-pull position when it comes to making the playoffs. So what is your thoughts, obviously, John, on this? It's really difficult to even think about Atlanta United not possibly making the playoffs.
Let's work our way backward and come forward here. So if you're looking at it that way, let's take a peek at the standings right now in the East, and let's take it from that perspective. Right now, Montreal at 20 points are in 8th. Chicago, 19 points in 9th. Atlanta, with 5 wins right now, has played one more match than Nashville. They're both at 18 points. Atlanta with 5 wins, and Nashville with a match in hand with 4. Inter Miami at 17 points in 12th, and then you have Cincinnati and DC United. All right, so let's take a peek at 8 through 14 real quick. I don't think DC's going anywhere.
Okay.
I don't think Cincinnati's going anywhere. I think that Miami has too many issues defensively, and also the injury to Luis Robles is not going to help anything between the sticks for the remainder of the season. So that leaves me with some combination of Nashville, Atlanta, Chicago, and Montreal not making the playoffs. And if you're asking me about it, I'm going to say it's Montreal, because Montreal is having to play away from home. You're not at Stade Saputo, and you're away from home for the remainder of the season. You're not having anything. You're having the home away from home here in the United States, much like Vancouver and much like Toronto playing in Hartford. So I think that the grind of the schedule will catch up with Montreal, and I don't see them getting a whole lot of points here in the home stretch. And so if you're asking me my 4, it's DC, Cincinnati, Miami, and Montreal. I think that what we've seen from Nashville, Gary Smith has built a great team down the spine. You got some great names defensively at the back, Walker Zimmerman, and that's another rabbit hole to go down entirely where LAFC is concerned. But you hope that Yonder Cadiz, if you're a Nashville fan, is going to sit there and help you put more balls in the back of the net. But I just think that Montreal, right now only being 2 points away from not making the playoffs, having to play everything away from Montreal itself, I think that grind is going to catch up with them over the last handful of weeks of the schedule. So that's how I'm looking at things in the East for the remainder of the run.
Right, and I do agree with you. I feel like Inter Miami has issues defensively, very much so. But when you are still looking at a game against Inter Miami, which we are doing currently, they are still very much a dangerous team. Matuidi is still a great midfielder who is going to help and combine. They have the ability to link up play very easily with their attacking players. And then you have, obviously, the consistent threat of Gonzalo Higuain, who has the ability to take long shots off ball, who has an ability to combine with other players. We obviously saw that in other games that he's played, not necessarily against us, because the last time he played, he was just coming out of quarantine, or literally just came out of quarantine prior to. But he's a threat, and he's going to be a threat when we play him tomorrow. And how does that shape up between our midfield and our defensive back line with the attacking threat of Inter Miami as well? Even though Inter Miami, it does lack a little bit of defensive cohesiveness.
Yeah.
My words are going beyond me.
No, you got it. It's defensive cohesiveness. You're there.
And Robles, the injury to Robles is a big blow for them. We still have to put goals in the back of the net, which is not what we're doing. So this still being a must-win game in my eyes is still going to be a hard game to get 3 points out of.
No question, but once again, I look at how things could be on the left-hand side. If you line up John Gallagher and George Bello on the left, say, then you're going up against some combination of Figal and Nealis and maybe De La Garza. So I think that can be had down the left-hand side, but I also think that the matchup defensively with Bello and Lewis Morgan, I think that's going to be a fun one to watch for a full 90 minutes too. So it's just going to be taking advantage of what Miami gives you and making sure that you can finish those opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's still going to be a good matchup to watch. I mean, I think it's going to be an absolutely physical match. Mm-hmm. Teams don't like each other. It feels like another rivalry that's been...
Well, and then you've got LGP at the back, and so, yeah, there's that part of it, too.
Which will actually also be a very interesting matchup because this is the first time that... And I'm seeing Franco drop back into center back. He's just been so good there. I don't see why you'd try and push him out wide again, but it would be an interesting... It'd be an interesting game to see both Franco sitting back on the back line and then having LGP there, because one of the things that I find really interesting is it almost feels like the replacement. I know that we get into this whole...
Watch your hashtag replacements there.
The person to slot in and to fill that sort of energy and personality of LGP was actually already on the team when he left, which would be Franco Escobar. I think Mays is a great player, but I see him more of a Parkhurst than an LGP. So in some ways, the LGP quote-unquote hashtag replacement was playing beside him the entire time, which is a fascinating idea because, I mean, when you have two players of that sort of flair on the back line, it tends to have fun matches. So.
No, and the other X factor for me, which really isn't an X factor, I guess, because he's already spent 60 minutes out there, is Marcelino Moreno. Now that you have him as a part of this discussion, I want to see how he is integrated in his second match. Stephen Glass not afraid to put him out there for 60 minutes, and it was a fun watch. And as those relationships continue to grow, as you continue to have that second date, that third date, with the...
Why are we still doing date analogies, John? I think you've been out of the game long enough where I don't think the analogies work anymore, but you know what? Go ahead. Go ahead and go for it.
Spending more time with your buddies. Yep. The 8-bit death from Mario Kart. Yeah, yep. That's just what we're talking about. But no, I'm looking forward to seeing Marcelino Moreno. How many minutes can Jürgen Damm give you? If you have, say, Adam John up top as that physical presence, if you've got Damm on the right, is Brooks your right back? Does that mean that Miles back, is he at center back? Franco's at your other one? Then you got Bello on the right. You have Gallagher on the left. To me, there's an excitement and an energy here coming into this one because of what you are looking forward to with the speed that Atlanta United can bring to the table going up against this Inter Miami team, and I think that they can be had in one-on-one situations.
I agree with you. I think Atlanta United can really take advantage of attacking on a break and a bit of transition. I think defensively, Miami's not great at getting set quickly. So I do think if they have the ability to obviously intercept the ball in midfield and go on a quick break, I think that's something that Atlanta United should be looking forward to doing. I think another thing that Atlanta United should be doing is watching out for LGP as far as when it comes to set pieces, because the guy likes to draw fouls. Mm-hmm. Obviously saw that in the game against the Dynamo. However, the Dynamo did not help themselves at all in that PK by wrapping their arms around him. So I think that's something that obviously will need to be looked at. Atlanta United, not great on set pieces this year, but definitely something that you should be looking at as far as players in the box to be aware of. That being said, I think we should bring in the man behind the Iron Curtain, don't you? Let's
the great and powerful Oz.
Great and powerful Oz, as you should have paid Kevin Egonoff, the godfather of Atlanta United.
The godfather.
Atlanta soccer and just soccer in general. The maestro.
He's that much of a maestro that it's an extra syllable. The maestro.
The one, the only. I feel like it needs to be like a WWE intro.
Yeah, I think there should. I think it'd be great.
Jason Longshore.
Yo, what's up?
Obviously, we're getting into the weeds of us playing against Inter Miami. I'm scratching my dog here as if she's absolutely dying attention right now. Must game for you, Jason. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, it's not must win because there's more games, but it's a 6-pointer because you're battling with Miami for a playoff spot. It's vital because there's only 2 games left that I think you're going to be favored in, Cincinnati and D.C. This is your best chance of the other 4 to get a win because the other 4, and Miami's one of them, you're going to Columbus on decision day, you're going to Orlando, and you're going to Connecticut to play Toronto. Those are 3 of the best teams. So, I mean, it's 3 of the best 4 teams in the Eastern Conference. Miami's the other one that you have to go on the road to play. So, this is your best chance outside of your home games to steal points. You need 3 if you can get them here.
Yeah. And then, so when we talk about what we could possibly see on the back line as far as players that come in, obviously you've touted and you've said how much you love Franco Escobar. Do we see him as getting that call back on the back line, or do we see Meza or Miles popping back in there?
Well, I think Miles is back in. My guess is that it could be Franco Escobar and Miles Robinson. The questions are going to come around the rest of the team and fitness. You know, is Jürgen Damm going to be able to start again? I thought he had a good 45 minutes. Didn't have it really in the second half. But can he get you another start? If he can, then you want to play Brooks Lennon at right back. That puts Escobar at center back. That gives you the Miles and Franco pairing. If Dom can't go, then you're probably going to put Lennon at right wing. Then Escobar could slide over. Then it's Meza or Walks with Miles Robinson. There's always the question about Jeff Larentowicz. You know, is he going to be able to go again? He keeps saying he feels fine. He keeps playing fine. So there's really no concerns there. Marcelino Moreno, you know, how is he going to feel after his first competitive action in over 6 months? You know, is he going to feel like he can go again from the start? Is he going to be available off the bench? Cubo Torres has started training again. Does he come into the lineup up top? Does that move Gallagher back to the left wing? Does Adam John come back in? That's the thing is you don't have a lot of settled positions right now for a lot of reasons. Because of the injuries, because of the fitness, because of the compressed schedule, and because the form has been so-so. You know, I mean, there was a question from Shiva in the Twitch pitch about, you know, why Meza hasn't come back into the team. I think it's just because he's been beaten out. You know, he got injured, and then he's just been beaten out. And other players are playing well in his position, so they've kept their spot. Other positions, like up top, you haven't gotten it consistently out of John or Gallagher as the number 9. So does that open up a door for Cubo Torres to come back into the team? Can he give you 45 tomorrow? I don't know. I don't know where his fitness is. Mateus Osetu is back in the team training. So does he come into that midfield, which has been pretty good with Jeff Larentowicz, with Mo Adams, who had a slight hamstring issue. You saw it at the very end of the game on Wednesday. He wasn't able to start, but he came in off the bench. Does he go back into the starting lineup? Because he's played like a starter. You know, that's the thing is you've got depth, and that's why you're competitive right now. But you don't have the top-tier talent healthy and firing on all cylinders at the moment. So you're competitive, but you're not dominant. And that's a tough spot to be because how do you solve it? You know, right now with players trying to play themselves into form, trying to stay healthy, trying to stay fit, it's a guessing game today as to what the lineup will be tomorrow. And we just have to kind of wait and see.
So then let me ask you this. What do you think of Marcelino Moreno in his debut?
He makes Emerson Hyndman better. He makes everybody on the team better. But he formed a good partnership with Hyndman considering they met on Saturday. That's pretty crazy. Really good first performance. You saw what he gives you on the defensive side of the ball as well. Won the ball back a number of times. He's a good passer. I think he sees the game very well, and I think he has a good feel in the final third and going into the final third. He's going to be a player who will be a big player in this league. I really think he will. I don't know if we'll see that necessarily until next year because he just isn't match fit. You know, he's in good shape, but he's not match fit. And I think you saw it in the second half where he played 45 minutes at a pretty high intensity, very well. After cooling down because he hasn't played like that in over 6 months, he wasn't the same in the second half. Where is he going to be Wednesday? We just don't know. It's a total guessing game for what level he's going to be at. But in general, he makes this team far better than they were before because he's that good of a player.
Looking forward, obviously, to tomorrow when we're going up against Inter Miami and we're facing the likes of the captain for that club, Gonzalo Higuain, who has the ability to, obviously, like we said, shoot from distance and combine well with players. What would be, or what is crucial for Atlanta to do to shut down Inter Miami's attacking presence?
Well, it's a different Miami team than it was the last times we've seen them. They're not going to press up as high because Gonzalo Higuain's not that kind of a player. They also played very differently against Houston on the weekend, and some of this is down to Rodolfo Pizarro being away with Mexico. Miami played a 3-4-2-1, 3-4-3 against Houston on the weekend, and it was a nasty game because of the weather. It was pouring like crazy, so it's hard to take a ton out of it. They got the win, but the way that team looked, it was Higuain up top with Morgan and Pellegrini kind of tucked in behind. Brek Shea and Dylan Nealis were the wingbacks. Blaise Matuidi and Will Trapp were your central midfielders. And then the line of three was LGP, Figal, and De La Garza. Same thing that we just said from Atlanta's perspective about the lineup. We don't really know how guys are going to feel. We don't know where Higuain's fitness is. We don't know, are guys going to be able to turn around and go again on short rest. But if they go with that kind of a shape, we haven't seen Miami play it, firsthand. So Pellegrini and Morgan are in very free roles. You have to make sure they're accounted for. You have to make sure Higuain is accounted for at all times. If Robinson comes back into the team, I would assume it's Robinson on Higuain. If it's Escobar at center back, he'll be free and he'll pick up whoever comes into his area between Pellegrini and Morgan. But he's going to need help to deal with the other one, and that's got to come from either Brooks Lennon or George Bello, depending on how they kind of arrange the defensive duties here. And Jeff Larentowicz is going to have to drop in and help more defensively, or Mo Adams or Eric Remedi, whoever it is as the six. It's going to be different because, as we saw when Atlanta played the 3-4-3, it can be unpredictable when it's working really well because Morgan and Pellegrini aren't necessarily tied down to certain areas of the field. They kind of split it in half is the way that it played out against Houston. Morgan was on the right side, Pellegrini was on the left, but they'd come inside all the time. So you have to make sure that you know who has who, so the communication has to be strong, but you also have to make sure when you have to pass somebody off. If Morgan does what he does so well and drifts over to the left, we don't want George Bello necessarily following Lewis Morgan all the way to the other side of the field. You've got to make sure that when he goes over there, if it's Adams, if it's Larentowicz, somebody's got to drop and help cover there. And that's going to be a key here because Miami, in a 3-4-3, has the personnel to be pretty dangerous because it frees up Blaise Matuidi as well to step up into that gap between the front three and between the midfield. So you've got to be in good communication here, and you've got to make sure that everything's covered.
You mentioned Atlanta defensively against Inter Miami offensively. What about the flip side of that? Where do you think Inter Miami can be had coming up tomorrow night?
Out wide. Brek Shea and Dylan Nealis, neither one are very good against dribblers, and Atlanta is a very good team on the dribble. If that's the way they go, you want to attack the wingbacks, and especially when they do get forward, you want to attack behind them. So if Brek Shea bombs forward on the left, and we know he's dangerous when he gets into the final third, when you turn them over, you want to go to that side. You want to get Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez drifting out to play as a left back. You don't want him in space if you're Diego Alonso, if you're Miami. You don't want Brooks Lennon or Jurgen Damm especially running at him with pace because he's going to get caught and he's going to get in yellow card trouble. You don't want AJ De La Garza or Jorge Figal drifting out wide to have to defend in space. You want to attack down the flanks and pull Miami apart because it does two things. It gives you the 1v1s that you can win. It also opens up gaps for a Marcelino Moreno, for an Emerson Hyndman to step into from the midfield and get goal-scoring opportunities.
Now, we talked a little bit about Higuain as far as Gonzalo, but obviously the separation in the news has come out that Federico has also joined Inter Miami. Do we see Federico coming on and playing at any point in time this match against Atlanta United, and how could both Higuaín brothers contribute to Inter Miami?
Well, they're saying he's going to be eligible to play and that he'll be available for selection. Diego Alonso confirmed that. He hasn't played a lot this season. He hasn't played a lot of minutes at a time, so I don't know what he really has left in the tank. He had a bad knee injury last year. It's why Columbus didn't bring him back. He went to D.C. as a player, kind of an halfway assistant coach. I don't know how involved he was on that level, but he just didn't do a whole lot in D.C. When we saw him, it would be for 5 minutes here and 10 minutes here, and he was good in those moments, but it was very limited. Is he going to be able to come in and play, even 60? Because they could use a player like that. Without Pizarro, without Lee Nguyen, who they let go, you need somebody who can be a secondary playmaker. Can Federico Higuaín sit in front of two holding midfielders and just spray passes? He can. He has the ability. I just don't know if he has the legs and the energy to. If he does, that's a dangerous thing because he still has that vision. He still has that passing ability. He's not as dangerous in the 1v1s as he used to be, but he can still hurt you if you let him. So if they shift things around and go with that, maybe they play more of a 3-5-2 in that case, and Higuaín sits behind two forwards, and Morgan just steps up higher or Pellegrini steps up higher. It's possible. I think they'd probably like for him to have a little more time, and I think they also want to use him as an attacking weapon off the bench. But without Pizarro, they could use that creativity. I just don't know how much he's got in the tank.
Yeah.
When you look at Inter Miami through 17 matches on the whole as a first-year team here in Major League Soccer, I mean, I don't like to use the term expansion team because that's always that to me it gives that impression of there's a bunch of cast-offs and it's like the Washington Capitals of the 1970s where you win 9 games out of 82. That to me is an expansion team. I've always thought of this as a first-year club. I've always thought of Nashville as a first-year club. When you look at Inter Miami as a first-year club through basically 2/3 of the season, what have you thought so far just in general?
They haven't necessarily had a plan, and they've had to adjust on the fly, and they've done a good job of that. But you've added, since the season started, Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez, Gonzalo Higuaín, Blaise Matuidi, Federico Higuaín. I think that's it for your big additions during the season. Those are huge. You have some redundant players that now you kind of wonder where they fit, like Will Trapp and Victor Ulloa, now that you've added Blaise Matuidi. I think your original build wasn't very good, to be perfectly honest. I just don't think it was. Now, maybe you missed out on some signings you expected to make all that work, and you've had to adjust, because the adjustments have been good. Getting Matuidi on a TAM deal, getting LGP on whatever deal they've got him on, getting the deal done for Higuaín. Federico's just a nice little cherry on top of the pie here. But that's good work by the front office to get that, because before they were a bad team. They were an expansion team. They were a typical bad expansion team. Now they've got some danger about them because you've got a World Cup winner. You've got a World Cup finalist. You've got players who have been at the highest levels of the game. You've got things that look a little more coherent here, and you absolutely hit on a player in Lewis Morgan. They'll be better next year. I still think they have issues defensively. I still think they need a goalkeeper long term. I don't know if Luis Robles is that in the long term. They don't have a back line that's a championship kind of back line, but they've got a dangerous attack. They can score goals, and they're right now, because of all these additions, a little unpredictable, just because we haven't seen these guys play together all that much.
And obviously, we're going to start getting into your predictions for the game tomorrow. But one of the things that I did want to ask is, who do you see for the Five Stripes being the crucial man to take against Miami? So obviously, Jeff has played a huge part. Same with Franco Escobar. Obviously, Moreno coming in being able to play and add that energy back into the team. But who do you see as being the crucial key tomorrow for our game against Inter Miami?
I think it's Escobar. I think because of the way I'm kind of expecting Miami to line up and the way that I'm guessing Atlanta will line up, Escobar will be the more free of the two center backs because somebody's going to have to be with Gonzalo Higuain. And if that's Miles Robinson, that would make sense. We've seen him in that role many times. If that's an Anton Walkes, I think that's a better fit than Franco because you want Franco to be able to jump into passing lanes. You want him to be able to go push the ball forward at times. You don't want him tied down to more of a marking job. So he's going to have to be the one who, if you can neutralize Higuain and make it difficult to find him, Escobar's got to deal with anything else that comes through the central channels. And that could be Morgan. That could be Pellegrini. That could be Federico Higuain. That could be a lot of different pieces. Blaise Matuidi at times. That could be a lot of different things. And Escobar is going to have to organize that group. We saw his ability to do that on Saturday because it wasn't just strong play. It was strong communication, strong leadership from him. You're going to need that going forward. He's turning into, in some ways, what we thought maybe Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez would as a potential captain at some point for this club. He's playing like one right now.
Yeah, absolutely love to see that. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the predictions. I don't know if you guys want to hold it for your show tomorrow. If you're willing to give your prediction right now, that'd be great. So let's just go ahead and I'm going to do John first. John, you were last time I went first and stole your prediction, so I'm gonna change it now.
All right, fine. I'll go with the Velvet Driving Slipper Lock of the Week. I'm in that kind of a mood. I'll go 2-1 Atlanta United. I think Lewis Morgan gets his 6th of the year for Inter Miami. I think that Marcelino Moreno gets on the sheet. And I also think that John Gallagher gets his 4th coming in off the left. So I'll go with Gallagher, Moreno, Morgan, 2-1 Atlanta United.
Wow. Okay. All right. Jason, let's go with you next.
This is a tough one to call because Miami's so unpredictable. I mean, you look at their results. You know, they're on back-to-back wins. They lost 3 in a row before that, and a couple of them were bad losses, 3-0 and 4-1. And the 4-1 was to the Red Bulls, who I don't think are the greatest of teams. If you're going to be, you want to be better than what the Red Bulls are right now. Atlanta was not that on Saturday. Miami wasn't that in a big way a couple weeks ago. They did beat the Red Bulls 2-1 the last time out with a big goal from Higuain. They're just hard to call. Morgan scares me because he's such a hard player to nail down. He can drift out wide and put in a dangerous cross. He can cut inside and score with either foot. I do think there's going to be goals in it. I hope Atlanta creates more chances. That's my biggest concern here is it's hard for Atlanta to create a lot of opportunities. And a lot of times they've done that with energy. And this is another midweek game after a game on the weekend that did take a good bit out of you. How much are they going to have in the tank? I think they'll put up a good performance because they know how important this game is. So I'm going 2-2 draw.
Okay. I'm also actually going for the Velvet Slipper Drive of the Week. But that's where it's going to be 1-1 for pretty much the entire match. And then Atlanta United sneaks one out in the stoppage time minutes with a wonder goal from John. So that's where I think that's going to land. I just feel like I feel like, again, like you said, Jason, it's a very, very hard game to call because Miami is unpredictable. But I also I really hope that we get 3 points out of this match because I do feel like it is a must-win game, at least from my perspective, of us heading into this last run of games before Decision Day against Columbus, which is another huge game. All right, Jason, where can they see everything that you got going on tomorrow?
So we've got the show in the morning, normal time, normal places. We've got stoppage time back to our normal time at 2 o'clock tomorrow, facebook.com/929thegame. We'll be on the air at 7, possibly 7. I don't know if it's 7 or 7:30 because it's an 8 o'clock kick. So I think we're on at 7. But we'll let you know in the morning when I find out. I think it's 7 o'clock. Sometimes we fill some extra time when we have the 8 o'clock kicks.
Yep.
So that's obviously on air for 92.9 The Game.
92.9 The Game and the radio.com app.
Yep. And then are you doing any pre-show stuff for Atlanta United?
Yes, we'll have the countdown to kickoff for AT&T on the Atlanta United social media channels. I forgot. There's so many different things. I can't keep track of all of them.
I was trying to lead you into that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, John, where are you going to be watching the game tomorrow?
That'll probably be here in Office HD, so I will be hanging out with everybody else, keeping an eye on things, and obviously back first thing in the morning with soccer down here from 9 until 11.
Yes, an Overreaction Thursday, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I will be watching from Casa del About to Change Kelly. Next time you guys see me, this will be a completely different background. So I will be packing boxes as I watch the match tomorrow. It'll be a very interesting night for me. But otherwise, we are so glad that you joined us today. Please be sure to join us next game, which is actually, I believe, the next time we have the run-up is on a Friday, correct? Our next game is Saturday. We've got a week.
It's a Sunday and then a Saturday run-up.
There you go. Saturday run-up, Sunday show. Heard it straight from Jason because Kelly got it wrong. Thank you guys so much for joining tonight. We look forward to seeing you guys then. So there's a game this Sunday.